So fantasy football season right around the corner here in a few weeks here. But here's a few guys I would definitely want to target at the quarterback position going into the season. The first guy, Derek Carr of the Vegas Raiders. So this Vegas Raider team really beefed up in the offseason, getting Devontae Adams, Derek Carr's former college teammate, and adding him to the receiver core here. Now you got Derek Carr, has Hunter Renfrow, you got Devontae Adams, you got Wall, you got Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake in the backfield. And this offense could definitely be lethal. So right now, preseason here, Derek Carr, he's going about 10th, 11th round in most fantasy leagues. And last season, he still had a great season, his Carr, even though he was inconsistent. 4,804 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and 108 rush yards with 5 fumble losses. But this season here, I think Derek Carr, he's going to take it to the next level with this Las Vegas Raider team. And Devontae Adams, we know he's one of the best receivers in the league. From him to go Green Bay to Vegas, he does take a little bit of a hit here, is Devontae Adams. But right here, Derek Carr, he's got all these weapons to his disposal this season. It's going to be good to see what he could do now with a true number one receiver, is Carr, who obviously was a high draft pick many seasons ago. So right now, I think it's a bargain, 10th or 12th round to get Carr, because this guy, he's going to put up yards. He's going to put up touchdowns. I know he had 19 turnovers last season, but now with a good receiver like Devontae Adams, where you can force feed him a little bit, he'll make some plays on balls that could go the other way. So this season, I definitely would target Carr. And if you want to wait a quarterback to the later rounds, he's definitely a bargain bin guy and a guy that will help your fantasy team this season. The next quarterback's Matthew Stafford of the championship Los Angeles Rams. So Stafford last season, a great season in his first season in Los Angeles. 4,886 pass yards, 41 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, 43 rush yards, 2 two-point conversions, and 2 fumble losses. So right here, I know Stafford's banged up right now a little bit with an elbow injury, but he's another guy going 9th to 10th round in most fantasy drafts here. And they got a great offense. I know Odell Beckham, he's probably gone this season, and even if he does re-sign here, he's going to be out for 6 or 7 weeks here, is Beckham. But Cooper Kupp, who's the best wide receiver in football, had the Triple Crown last season. You got Allen Robinson, which was a good signing. I know Robert Woods left and went to Tennessee in a trade. But right here, this offense is all together. You got Cam Akers, who's definitely an upgrade in the backfield. And Tyler Higbee, who's been a decent tight end. And Jefferson as their third receiver. So right here, this Ram offense is ready to roll. Matthew Stafford, we know he has a big arm. And as long as Cooper Kupp's in the lineup and playing, I'll have no problems drafting Matthew Stafford on draft day. And he's definitely a quarterback I would want to target here. I don't know if he's going to throw for 41 touchdowns, but I think this season anywhere from 4,500 to 5,000 yards and probably 35, 38 touchdowns. And you know the interceptions will be there, but he's a guy that definitely could put up huge numbers, and also a guy, a little bit of a bargain at the back end of fantasy drafts to get him in the 9th or 10th round. The next quarterback's Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Burrow in his second season in the league, he really broke out. And that had to do a lot with Jamar Chase, former LSU teammates. And those guys went on a tear last season, leading Cincinnati to the Super Bowl, but falling short, obviously, to the Rams. So last season for Burrow, 4,611 pass yards, 34 passing touchdowns, 14 intos, 118 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns, and 2 fumble losses. So right now, Burrow, he's going anywhere from 7th to the 8th round in most fantasy drafts here. And he's definitely a guy who's just going to get better, in my opinion. It was only his second year. He's coming off the ACL as well, and he didn't look 100% for most of the season last year. But he had a lot of big fantasy games with 40-plus point fantasy games. And this Bengal offense is definitely intact. You got Jamar Chase. You got T. Higgins. You got Tyler Boyd, who's a solid number 3 wide receiver. You upgraded the offensive line signing Lyle Collins, and you still got Joe Mixon, who's one of the better running backs in the backfield as well. So right here, Joe Burrow, I think he could have another huge season and possibly hit that 40-touchdown mark and have less turnovers as well. So Burrow in the 6th or 7th round, I think it's a good get to get him in your fantasy draft. And he could only get better. Jamar Chase, I don't think he was fluky. He could run all the routes. He could make all the plays. And their chemistry and ESP is out of control. So right here, Joe Burrow's definitely a quarterback I would target this season, and a guy I would have a lot of confidence as my starter. The next guy's Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jalen Hurts last season, pretty decent year in his first full season as a starter. 3,144 pass yards, 16 passing touchdowns, 9 intos, 784 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns with 2-point conversions. So right here, Hurts, we know he likes to run the football, but he's not a guy that's going to look to run every play. He picks his spots, and he's good at that, is Hurts. So he's going to get you an extra 5-6 points on the ground, maybe even more. Now he's got a true number one wide receiver. If the Eagles in the offseason traded for A.J. Brown, and this offense is pretty loaded, in my opinion. You got A.J. Brown, you got Devonta Smith, you got Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, and your running backs, Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. So right here, the division's not that great in the NFC East. And I think Jalen Hurts could pay good dividends for fantasy owners. And right now, he's a quarterback going 7th or 8th round as well, because obviously those rushing yards are definitely key. Running quarterbacks definitely help your fantasy team here. Even if he has a down passing game, we saw it a lot last season. The rushing will save him with the extra 6 to 10 points here for Jalen Hurts. So right now, as a 7th, 8th rounder, I think it's a perfect position to get him. The division isn't strong, and he's got a true number one wide receiver this season to go with Devonta Smith, who I think has a good second year as well. And the final quarterback I definitely look to target and draft this season going into the year is Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos. So Russ, he's going about 8th, 9th round the most fantasy drafts here. So Russell Wilson last season, not a great year with the Seattle Seahawks, but in the offseason, the Denver Broncos finally got their franchise quarterback. So last year for Wilson, 3,113 pass yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 in those, 183 rush yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. But now he goes from a mediocre offense that was going slow tempo in Seattle to where they're saying in Denver they're going to go high pace and quick tempo offense. And they got tons of weapons there as well. You got Cortland Sutton, you got Jerry Jeudy, you got Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon as good backs in the backfield. And they definitely could pay good dividends to go with a good quarterback this season here. So he's got the 2 good receivers like he did in Seattle. He's got 2 good running backs. And I think he's ready to roll here is Russell Wilson. And this is going to be a great division and probably the best division in all pro football this season. Here's the AFC West. And I think Russ, we're going to see a bounce back for him. Even last season with the down year with the yards and touchdowns, the interceptions and turnovers were down. And I think this season he could easily hit 35 to 38 total touchdowns this season. So Russell Wilson's definitely a quarterback I would target. So that's a few quarterbacks I would target heading into your fantasy drafts for the 22 season.